Joining me now to talk more about Florida's presidential preference primary are WPBF 25 exclusive political analysts. That's former Congressman Ron Klein and former Florida House Majority Leader Adam Hasner. Adam, I'll start with you tonight. Since we knew the outcome of this before it started, and we knew that Donald Trump would win the Republican primary, there's no Democratic primary in this presidential primary tonight. Are there any Florida factors we can look at to do with this vote that can give us any hint to the future as far as the general election goes?
Yeah, I think we've seen over the last few elections Florida moving further to the red column, but it's still going to be a competitive state. I think the word that you're going to hear a lot in the next 7-8 months is going to be double hater. And those are the voters that don't like Biden and don't like Trump. And it's all going to come down to which way those voters are going to break. Are they going to come home for Biden? Are they going to come home for Trump? Could they possibly vote for a third party? So this is really the beginning now of starting to dig deep into the data for each campaign to figure out how they can bring those voters back into their column in November.
All right, we'll take note of that term, double hater, Ron. We had 4 other states hold primaries today. What other primary, if any, are you looking at? Joe Biden's name, the incumbent president's name, is on those other ballots. What other primary are you looking at to give us a hint towards the general election?
Well, I think the Ohio Senate race was a very interesting one today. Marino, which is Trump's candidate, won. It was a 3-way battle, but it was a question about whether DeWine and Portman, two traditional Republicans in that state who had endorsed the alternative candidate, who's a reputable person, Dolan, whether he was going to have a shot. And it ends up that Trump's candidate won. Now, I think Sherrod Brown, who's the incumbent Democrat, probably prefers to have a more Trumpish kind of contrast than Dolan. Dolan was more of a traditional Republican and probably a little tougher to beat. But I think this will, again, be another one of those Trump-anointed races where we'll see what happens.
All right, I don't think I have any more primary questions, gentlemen, so let's move on. Adam, let's look at the general election campaign right now. Donald Trump does have some money problems. They go beyond that $500 million he owes for the civil judgment against him in New York. That has to do with raising campaign funds and also burning through some of that cash for legal fees. How does he get around this? Can he fix it? Will it even have an impact on the general election as far as campaign finances go?
Yeah, I think it's not just that. It's the fact that he's got to energize those small dollar donors that were so instrumental in his prior campaigns. And I think as things start to pick up again, I think that's really going to be where Trump is going to be able to match, perhaps not dollar for dollar with the Biden campaign, but certainly have enough money to be able to be competitive in the key states. Remember, this isn't a national race. We're going to be focused on 5, 6, 7, 8 battleground states. And so he just needs to make sure he has enough money to be able to be competitive in those battleground states.
And we'll point out right now the Democrats, the Democratic Party and the current president has a large lead in fundraising as we stand today, but the election is almost 8 months away. Ron, finally, President Joe Biden still underwater as far as job approval ratings go. What's the biggest challenge he has in the next months to turn that around?
I think what you've seen over the last few weeks is a lot more being out there. And I think fresh off the State of the Union address, where he showed a lot of energy, presented himself back to the American public, told them what he has been doing, he needs to continue to do that. He needs to continue to contrast himself with Donald Trump, which Donald Trump loves to do anyway. It goes both ways. But I think that, again, showing what he has done and what he will do over the next couple of years versus, Donald Trump's taking us backward and despair and retribution and all that kind of stuff. So there's a positive, negative sign to both campaigns. But I think he needs to continue to show what he views as a positive future for the country. That's Joe Biden to his core.
All right, Ron Klein, Adam Hasner, thank you both for your analysis tonight. Like I said, less than 8 months until the general election. Gentlemen, thank you both.